Hello, everybody. Welcome to Black Girl Love Yourself. This is going to be an incredible conversation with four folks that I would say are leaders in their respective industries, right? We're all tackling this whole idea of how to love yourself, how to love your body more specifically, right? Through a decolonial lens. So we have Ashantis, Leslie, Tash, and Bria. They're all here to chat today about this incredibly important topic. Everybody, say hello.
Hey.
Hi.
Hey.
Hello.
Awesome. Okay. Awesome. Well, let us get right into it. So I want everybody to start, and anyone can go ahead, but let me start with Ashantis because her name begins with an A, right? So I would love for you to share a little bit about your personal journey towards body positivity and self love type of mindset, and of course looking at all that through a decolonial lens, like a bit about how your personal journey has essentially gotten you to where you are from a professional standpoint.
Yes, absolutely. So, my name for those that folks don't know me is Ashantis. I use both she and they pronouns. And my personal journey actually started back in 2017, just about this time of the year, actually. And I had just had some big life transitions and looking for a sense of control, utilized exercise and food as a way to find that sense of control. Um, and it ended up with an eating disorder and had to go through the recovery process. And as I was going through the recovery process, I was also starting my master's in counseling and realized that there was a lot about diet and exercise and body and health that just didn't exactly add up. And so it was kind of going through my own personal eating disorder recovery at the same time as learning how to be a mental health professional specifically for people going through the recovery process. And that has led me to where I am today, now as a mental health professional and fitness professional.
Amazing, amazing. Thank you for sharing that. And that's it's such an interesting just like clash in a sense, right? When you are going through your own like mental health evolution slash crises, at the same time you have people under your care who are also going through it. Whew,
Yep.
my goodness, yeah. And Bria, let me turn to you. Tell me a little bit about yourself, your journey, and how that's led you to where you are professionally.
Yes. Well, hello, everyone. I'm Bria Robinson, and I also have she, her pronouns, she, her, hers. And my journey, I would say, has been since I can remember. I've always been a fat kid. My narrative is a little bit different from those of who I serve. I've always had a very affirming mother. So that's really central to my narrative because I think it really helped build the resiliency that I had through all of my challenges. But more specifically, I've always been curious about just this idea around health, wellness, body image. As I chronicle through life having these challenges, my senior year in high school, I had lost 100 pounds, and I just ended up losing 100 pounds because of some life changes that I was making. But then once the 100 pounds was lost, that's where kind of my fixation became like maintaining it. It was at that very pivotal time in my life where I was going off to college. You want to look good, feel good, all the things. And that's where I kept getting curious because I just like something just doesn't fit. It doesn't feel right. So I was an undergraduate researcher. I did my research around body image and health, and I landed in this work as a therapist, and not specifically working on body image issues. That came much later when I realized that I was causing my clients some harm, especially my clients who were coming to me for wellness specific reasons. My niche, if you will, in the therapy world was just redefining and rediscovering your womanhood. But through just different avenues, I developed embodied work, which is embodied care. which helps folks to conceptualize body image issues as a trauma. And I didn't have a name for that, but that is exactly what chronicled my journey, was being in a space where you are an other body and that body safety is not there, right? So you go and you try to find it. And that is exactly what I was doing. And so now I support my clients to help them really understand the issues from underneath the surface and contextualize them from a space of community, social environment, and helping them see how these shaping experiences led to their dissatisfaction that leads to other behaviors. That's why I always say body image issues are a gateway to things such as eating disorders, right? They're not synonymous, and it's not synonymous with health, right? Which is what people often think, right? You go to therapy and you may treat self-esteem and all these other issues that are at the surface, but underneath that is that trauma experience that doesn't get named. And so that is what we're trying to stepping into calling these things what they are, right? And then being able to support folks in a way that is more comprehensive with a diverse range of providers to support them.
Wow, yeah, that is so incredible. Thank you for just sharing like the pain of your personal experience in terms of, yeah, just all that happening when you were at such a pivotal moment, like an impressionable moment, right about to go off to college, right? And ultimately that really informing like the way that you're able to really understand that there is a difference, right, between body image issues, between an eating disorder, and there are things that contribute to both of those things, and the heart of that, the root of that being trauma. So thank you for sharing a little bit of your personal experience and also your professional triumph, right? And really being able to like help other people make sense of that journey, right? And so, Tash, I want to turn to you.
Okay, awesome. My name is Tash. I go by she, her. And for me, my story starts way back in South Africa. That's where I was born. I spent the first few years of my life there. And one thing I observed is that people were not as caught up in body image and restricting intake the way that they were here in Canada. And moving here in my childhood was so traumatic because I just realized how far away I was from these Western standards of beauty. Like, I'm not thin, I don't have a small nose or fair skin. All of those things don't apply to me. So just swallowing that pill was so difficult. But with time and lots of therapy, I was able to finally get to a space where I've realized that all of the ideas that were imposed on us as Black women are so unfair, and they are ignorant, honestly, because there's nothing wrong with existing in a different body type than the Western standards. So I think for me to get to that point, I really had to go through a lot of hurt, but I'm glad that I was able to get out on the other side. And that's why today, with my clients as a nutritionist, I work to deconstruct all the societal ideas and expectations around how we should eat, what we should look like, and how we should move our bodies.
Mm. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that. And also, right, just kind of going back to like the tagline of this event, we have folks that are coming into this discussion from different disciplines, right? So for those of you who are watching, like there's such a beauty in diversity, right? In diversity, of course, experiences, right? All of us as Black women are not a monolith culturally or otherwise, but definitely having that professional diversity. So thank you for sharing about your experiences, South Africa, starting there, and then Canada, and just the dissonance that you experienced. Yeah. And Leslie, last but not least.
Hi everyone. I'm Leslie Jordan Garcia, and that's pronounced she, hers, or because I'm in the South, ma'am. Um, I come to this work like these other queens, coming from a personal experience perspective. For me, I realized that my disordered eating really was at the intersection of when I joined the military. So I'm a vet, and really trying to maintain, deeply colonized perspectives of what a woman's body size, weight, down to being taped, um, in order to qualify even for enlistment, was a big part of that catalyzed my eating, my disordered eating, and that relationship between what I look like and what was valued in my culture or in my family versus what was being valued in my work and in my environment. I come from big people, that have always been proud people. So I quickly was like, my family is a little skewed. Like, y'all are glorifying being unhealthy. Y'all are like, so much of that narrative that exists on us, became internalized. And then when I finished my double master's program, so I have an MBA and a master's of public health, I worked with individuals learning to manage diabetes. And at that time, I had already gone through my own treatment and therapy process for my binge eating disorder, which I was actually treated for that before it was even in the DSM. That's how old I am, how long ago that's been. It'll be 20 years this year, as a matter of fact, since I started that recovery journey. But looking at the ways that the people that I was serving in the community health program to manage their diabetes, there was so much rampant disordered eating and unhealthy relationships with food in their body by all those people of all sizes and all cultures. So I knew it was something that we all had in common, and it's this Western ideal. And I always say Western ideals when it comes to body and beauty are synonymous with the colonial ideal, right? It's colonizers' ideals that we are so deeply impacted, harmed, and traumatized by. And at my work now, I help tease out those influences, the colonial influences, why we can tie them to colonization and why they're harmful and they're not ever going to be something that can help us feel whole or feel well in any way, shape, form, or fashion. So that's kind of where my work intersects with the decolonizing perspective in every way. So as an eating recovery coach, and fitness professional, it's been my profession for almost 20 years now, doing something in this field. So that's kind of where I come into this, really helping people tease out that your bodies are valuable because you exist, and we're limitless. And so it doesn't make sense for standards to limit us, limit our views of beauty, limit our views of value or inherent worth.
Well, amen to that. Amen to that. And thank you. I forgot that you were a vet. Like, thank you for even reminding me of that. And absolutely, right. Not only thank you for your service, but also, really hearing the ways that, yeah, that was an incredibly colonial space, right? And knowing that that's a part of your story too. That's a part of your journey as well. And before we go any further, I realized I didn't even introduce myself. So, hi everybody. My name is Morgan Morrison. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I'm the founder of Black Girl Mental, an organization dedicated to making mental health and wellness more accessible, equitable, and relevant for Black women. So excited to be here, being the MC for this afternoon's event. And so, we've used that term colonial, decolonialism, right? We've used that a couple times as, we've all been introducing ourselves. And so I want to ask, um, how would you define colonialism and why do we need to look at our bodies through a decolonial lens? Because I know, like we all kind of might be familiar with like the term like white supremacy or kind of like understand that, but there's specifically that piece of colonialism and kind of imperialism. And so, Ashantis, I'd love to pull you in first.
Yes, it's so nuanced, but I think in the simplest terms, the reason that we have to look at these things from a decolonialized lens is because the colonization is meant to wipe us out, is meant to change us, is meant to make us not us. And so if we only look at our health, beauty standards, etc., through this lens that is inherently created to never include us, then we're always failing. We are never meeting standards. And I mean, I like to win every once in a while. So, you know, why would I play by those rules? It doesn't make sense. I'm going to fail every time, even if I put in all of this work and dedication and discipline, which is the way that I think it is most commonly taught to us. It doesn't matter. You are never going to succeed. And I think it's important to name those things. I actually just saw an Instagram post from Jessica Wilson, who is a registered dietitian here in the States. And she was like, when we talk about things like diet culture, let's actually name what we're talking about. We're talking about racism. We're talking about social hierarchies. We're talking about colonization. We're talking about food deserts. And are they even food deserts? Like actually, let's talk about the specific violence put towards folks in order to make sure they do not have access to fruits and vegetables. Like, let's call it what it is. And I think it's important for us to name those things, because if we don't name it or we're not aware of it, there is no way that we're going to have the ability to change it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Would anybody else like to jump in?
I'll definitely touch on this. I do a lot of work around just helping folks understand the history of how we got here, right? And similarly to what Ashantis was sharing, right? These things, like even 16th, 17th century, that is how far back I go when I educate not only my clients, but other therapists on why this work is important. When we had the establishment of classist systems. Classist systems really set the precedence for how we should aspire to have these ideals of what the upper class looks like, what they dress like, what they feel like, what they do, right? And these aspirations, right, were then embedded through this idea of biopower, right? Controlling one's, shape, controlling what one does with their health, right? And this idea of biopower and disciplinary power. Everyone who knows me knows I hate that D word. I hate it. But this idea of discipline, right, in its very literal sense, is to control or to correct, right? And when we discipline our bodies, we're telling our bodies that they are bad. And so really helping folks to understand that these norms and these things that are our normal, right? We exist with them, and we shouldn't say that they don't exist, right? We're not trying to help our clients to look better by changing them. We're trying to help them understand their positioning in a social climate where they are other, right? And so the work becomes more about not that's in your head. No, it's not in your head. That's a real thing. Like, people really believe that about you. Right. So from my lens of really being able to support my clients with helping them understand the history and how these class systems were built and how we participate in them naturally, right? Because we're our own overseer when it comes to discipline, right? No one has to tell us not to do these things because we see it everywhere. And so that's why we feel shame in the comfort of our own homes when we're eating something bad, right? It's that disciplinary power that has influenced our society that causes us to then discipline ourselves.
Man, wow. Man, oh man. Yeah, absolutely. Definitely. Thinking back to what Ashanta said and also thinking about what you said, right? Kind of the root of colonialism being hierarchy, and embedded in hierarchy being power. And in power, there being these standards that were never created for us. So yeah, man, oh man, yeah. We'll take one more. Leslie or Tash, if you'd like to say some 2 cents.
I will throw in my 2 cents, just because what they're saying is so far is right on. And even with like just recently, I've been having conversations with people that are quick to say, well, were you colonized or were you conquered? So really discussing the nuance between what conquering of people look like and why that, although it has some similarities, is different than colonization. And what we're talking about is colonization. Lands or peoples or territories that have been conquered usually are free from these systems that embed classism, economic and resource exploitation at the hands of the people that are there. And the idea is that a lot of times with conquest, it's temporary. Like they have a goal that is short lived. Like, okay, we need this land so we can get over here, and then we can leave these people on about their business, right? Even if we're going to try to govern them, we don't try to annihilate their culture. That is different than what we're talking about, which is colonization, which thrives on discord, division, and lack of diversity. So that classist system narrows our view so much so that we dissociate, right? We become disembodied from our bodies because they've told us the foods that we're eating is not right, the foods that you're eating is bad, but the foods that we eat are good. Like everything becomes so embedded with this superimposed morality or righteousness of the dominant culture. And I think that is what has been so harmful because it leaves such a long lasting impact and legacy. We're still talking about things that happen to our ancestors and in the areas that we live in and to the indigenous population that were there. Not just 5-6 centuries later, we're talking thousands of years later, because these systems are become the new foundation of the society that crops up there. And I think that, especially when it comes to body image, we can go on and on. I know we all are well versed in Deshaun Harrison and Dr. Sabrina Strings, and and constantly emerging studies about how deep colonialism, and in our lifetime, we're really talking about British colonialism. Like they really, really took it around the world and at a level that no one else experienced. So we're looking at their ideals and their ability, because of their power, were able to racialize identities that had not before that really been racialized. And of course, they put Black on the bottom, right? So we're talking about anti-Black attitudes and how that is really filtered to Black women. No matter where we are, no matter if you call yourself Black, I've been seeing a lot of posts from Latinas that don't refer to them. Oh no, I'm not Black, I'm Dominican. Or it doesn't matter what you call yourself, because we're talking about how you're viewed by the outside world. Like you'll have time to explain that, but you're still going to be categorized, treated as such, so that is what we're talking about and how it affects the way we interact with every system: healthcare, food systems, job searching, even in our dating and in our social lives. How does that affect us? And I think that is what is important, like you said, as Dr. just to kind of name it, because that's what we're talking about. That anti-Black attitude that is embedded into all colonial ideas.
Yeah, you got a little muffled at the end there, but definitely heard that last point of just like how embedded everything is, right? And so I just want to show this comment on the screen. Stacy is really appreciative of this conversation, and this is like only the first question, right? So, yeah, like this is big, right? I think getting you all together to be able to talk about something that is happening and has been happening, and it's very much so ingrained in the way that we look at ourselves. It's almost so ingrained that we think about it just like the air we breathe or the water we drink. We don't think about it because it is just that natural. So definitely the ability to deconstruct this, and yeah, of course, talk about it into community in a space of community. And so I want to ask this next question, and it has to do with the idea of body positivity. I know that body positivity, it's something that can be quite loaded. Some folks are really for getting us kind of as a collective, as Black women, to the space of, yeah, we're positive. Other people are like, okay, don't take all that. Let's just be neutral, right? Let's just get to a place where, we don't have to have this cis boomba all the time. But I want to know your thoughts. I want to know your thoughts. What do you think about embracing body positivity as a goal for us as Black women as we continue to deconstruct or heal from a lot of these colonial ideals and ideas? Um, yeah, anybody can go first. Bria, go for it.
I just love talking about body positivity because I don't really use it in the way in which it's used.
Mm.
I focus on body liberation simply because we are always not going to feel positive about our bodies. However, the goal for me in my work with clients is to help you reconnect to your body, to feel like you are part of it and it is part of you. And so with body positivity, there's a place in that work, right, that needs to be nurtured, that needs to be cared for, so that you can see your body in a positive light because the rest of the world does not. But the reality of how we feel on any given day changes and shifts. And so being able to hold space for neutrality, positivity, and even the days in which you don't feel good about your body at all, how do you still nurture a positive relationship with it? And above positive, a healthy relationship with it, right? So we can even remove the positive out of that equation as well, right? Nurturing a healthy space for you to feel safe in your body safety, body trust, body intimacy, body connection, all of those things, I feel have a better place than positivity does.
Mm-hmm. Got you, got you. Anyone else want to jump in?
I'm gonna jump in quick because I agree. When we talk about the body positivity movement, we're not talking about feeling, like Bria says, feeling positive about your body. We're talking about co-opting some language from Black and fat Black pioneers, right, in the 50s and 60s. Fannie Lou Hamer talking about being able to feel positive as a big Black woman in civil rights movement. They have co-opted that language and watered it down to where it doesn't mean anything. I agree with Bria. We should be talking about body liberation because I feel that when you feel liberated within your body and with your body, free to liberate it to go to spaces you want to go, knowing that you're going to be safely. Bria, I love that you touch upon safety. You're going to be safely accommodated. If you're in a larger body, you can go to this restaurant, not have to worry about this chair breaking apart underneath you. You can, you can navigate the world in a safe way. People aren't gawking. People aren't approaching you and talking to you. Like you can go to a buffet and eat what you want. People aren't, saying like when you can move freely and liberated, I think you will love your body. And I don't think that love your body means, oh, I love my big thighs, or I love this. That's not what I'm talking about. I agree with you. I'm talking about a love relationship. You love your partners, and sometimes it's on your nose. You love your kids, and man, you see me just see mine, and like, girl, please, not like that. Like, the love doesn't change just because I can't do something in this one moment, right? And I think that our body is too wonderful to not feel that type of feeling about the body. Like I feel like we deserve that because our first community, our first relationship is with ourselves. And I think that we all deserve that love of ourselves. It's not about, a look or that. I think that you should know that, today these thighs just not dying, but I'm still gonna take care of myself. Like I still love myself enough to go on and do these other things. I think that's what the body liberation in the way that we are talking about it, which I'm like, oh, I don't want to stop talking because I want to listen. But that's what I think we're talking about. And that's different than when you see your mainstream fit influencer contort her body to try to create this role, talking about body positivity. We're not talking about that.
Wow, wow, wow. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Man, man, oh man. I'm telling you. Yeah, I actually want to answer. I want everyone here to answer this question, and I'd like to go to you, Tash. For you, like, is body positivity kind of in a west in that white watered down sense, or kind of in another sense of like having a positive relationship with your body, and allowing that positive relationship to be the thing that really kind of takes you with those ups and downs. Like, how do you kind of navigate that term with your clients even?
Mhm. So, like others have said, I definitely don't think body positivity is all about thinking, oh, I love myself every single day. I'm in love with my body because, yeah, body image does change every single day. But when I think of body positivity, I think more about the origins of it, like how it was started by fat Black femmes and women that were trying to, defend marginalized bodies. It was about not being attacked and harassed and humiliated. It was about safety. So I think that when I think of body positivity, I go back to the roots of really understanding what that was all about and how today we can start to look at our bodies from a decolonialized standpoint where we accept that even in our big thighs, even with these features that have been historically disregarded, we should still be able to take care of ourselves and love our bodies because, again, we do deserve that right, just like every other person. And when we accept ourselves, we can start to make better decisions about how we take care of ourselves, how we interact with others. I mean, for example, for myself, for the longest time when I was dieting and trying to change my body and trying to have a body that's more like others, I completely let go of my traditional foods, my culture, everything, because I thought it was less than, I thought it was inferior, and I looked towards others for that validation.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. So it all starts with that relationship, right? That relationship with self, specifically that relationship with your body. Ashantis.
Yeah, no, I think I'm in agreement with everybody here that, I think that body positivity is something that really started to become more the beginnings of mainstream, if you will, around the time that I was going through my own ED recovery. And so I definitely got pulled in and sucked into that. Obviously, it makes sense post eating disorder, if you will. But realizing the more that I uncovered and the more layers that are behind all of these things, right? Body positivity may be, for a lot of people, an entry point, if you will. But I think for all of us, we want to make sure that it's not the place that people stay, particularly Black women and femmes, because staying in body positivity is not actually solving the issue, if you will, the way that Bria talked about what's really the root of it all, right? And that body liberation allows us to get a little bit closer to that. But that also thinking about something that Deshaun L. Harrison says in Belly of the Beast of like, and we may have to deconstruct the entire world also in order to actually get there, because there is just so much anti-fat bias that lives within our everything. The reason that a bench is the standard best practice of a bench size, this place versus that place, like all of these things are so ingrained that we may not have a choice but to deconstruct it all, to disassemble it all in order to reassemble an actual neutrality, because nothing's neutral in this world.
Man, nothing is neutral in this world. Oh my goodness. I'm gonna have to sit down somewhere for a couple days and just meditate on that, because absolutely, right? Absolutely. We have another comment. Dion is just happy to be here. Thank you so much for being here, Dion. And yeah. Thank you so much for being able to bear witness to all the powerful statements that are being said here. Um, and so thinking about that relationship with the self and how that's the starting place for how we interact with the world, right? I want to talk specifically about the idea of reclaiming autonomy around one's or reclaiming autonomy over one's body. And I want to ask, like, that phrase, body autonomy, what role does that play in allowing us to view ourselves from a more decolonialized standpoint? Yeah, Leslie, go ahead.
Church finger, me. Um, so to me that's pivotal, that's critical, because for so long as we're here talking about Black girl love yourself, I feel like Black women have had the least autonomy for so long. Ashantis and I have talked about this before. I just was like, up until like literally the late 1960s and 1970s, in places like certain parts of South Carolina, Black women who, even if they didn't want to or could afford not to work, legally had to not just work, but carry a labor card that verified that they had work on them. So when you talk about, even if she had a husband and her own kids to care for, right? She was forced out of her home to go care for other people. Who that was slavery in the 1960s and 70s, like enforced labor when you can't even rest. So when we talk about Black women not being able to take a break or not knowing how to ask for help or assistance, we're talking about Black women who have that generational trauma of forced labor. Even when we want to rest, there is nobody that has less autonomy over what you do with your body than that. I'm in Texas, boo. I mean, Texas, like as we're looking at the reproductive rights be rolled back, like, body autonomy, being able just to make choices and own the choices. Self-determination is so critical. And it is, it's the foundation. It's my body. I should be able to make decisions for my own body. And I think that's what is at the root for me for body autonomy, really, really helping some of my clients reclaim that, because for so long it's been so easy to hand it over, or once it was stripped from you, not fight to reclaim it, right? So I think knowing that you deserve to be in complete control of your body, I think that is so much a part of this work for me and some of my clients. And I'm just going to stop there.
Yeah, absolutely. Heard you, heard you. Yeah, and that historical perspective, it makes this even that much more important, right, in this day and age. How about you, Bria?
Yeah, I'll definitely share from a perspective of being a therapist. Body autonomy is probably the most important thing that I teach my clients, because oftentimes, and I would say 99.9% of the people who come to me for body image therapy come seeking ways in which they can help to control their eating or to lose weight, right? I need to figure out what's going on up here that's causing me not to be able to lose the weight that I want. Simple, right? With body autonomy, I'm not trying to convince them otherwise. I'm trying to nurture them, to educate them, and help them deconstruct these ideals that they've set for themselves, right? And so it was so interesting because one of my earlier clients, like, we've since terminated. She's doing beautiful, amazing, but she found me on Instagram not too long ago, and she was like, well, Bria, if you would have sent me your Instagram, that could have fast-tracked our whole process. And I was trying to, like, and I get so many of my clients who share things like that, like, because in the therapy room, I have to be much different. I still come as my full self, but it's about my client at that point. And my narratives on my public facing page tell a narrative of myself, right? And so I'm not trying to impose my ideals, although I know it might get them to their destination a little bit quicker, right? But I'm not trying to impose my ideals. What I'm trying to do is nurture that autonomy within themselves so they can see these things and make these connections. And that is why I'm so passionate about helping other therapists do the same, because we practice so harmfully when it comes to treating issues like body image. So body autonomy is at the core, probably like the foundation of supporting clients in therapy with really going through these issues.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, Tash, how about you? I'm thinking about your work as a dietitian and even just like from food, right? Thinking about food and thinking about like that as an entry point for autonomy over one's body and over one's choices.
Well, I'm not a dietitian. I'm a nutritionist.
Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry.
No,
Thank
that's
you.
okay. That's
Thank
okay.
you for making that clear.
And when it comes to like food and autonomy, I was saying before, I do feel like there's a link between your cultural identity and your self-identity with body autonomy. So when you reclaim autonomy over your body in this journey, you get to create your own standards of beauty. You can define it your way, and when you do this, again, you open your life to so many different ways of eating, different types of foods that maybe you wouldn't have explored before because it's not the standard quinoa or kale that has been the holy grail of health. So when you have that autonomy, you kind of get to open your world and you can start to have a more authentic relationship with yourself, which is really nice.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, Ashantis.
I wanna touch on it. I want to touch on autonomy, but I want to touch on it from a slightly different perspective than everybody else has, because I think it's a conversation that has become more apparent specifically within the last 90 to 120 days, which is folks having the autonomy to know all of these things and still make a different decision. And I think that Bria touched on this very well in the sense of one of the things that comes up when I have my hat on as a therapist in comparison to having my hat on as a coach is, as a therapist, I can't just be like, no, that's the wrong thing. Don't do that. I can't do that because that's not my job in that room. I have to give people the autonomy to make a decision, even when I know that it might not actually be the best decision for them. And that I think it's important for us to think about that perspective as well when we speak about autonomy, because sometimes people have to make those decisions before they can see a different perspective. And sometimes people may have so much separation from self that they can't come to that full realization, or at least that it can't happen over a shorter period of time, that it may take decades to do. Because I don't think people really realize how psychologically like messed up we have made people in Western society believe things about health and body and image, particularly folks that grew up or had the experience of taking in media within the early 2000s. Because if I look at any of the magazines in the early 2000s and think about the things that were being said then, People Magazine wouldn't be around today if they said some of the stuff they used to say. We would have been got rid of People Magazine. So, that really warped our brains. And I realize that now in my own recovery process and in my process of helping other people in their recovery process, because your ED recovery is everlasting. You're always in recovery. That like there was a time in my life where my brain literally thought the size of my body was going to kill me. And I was this big. And that version of myself would probably pass out if they saw where I am today. Because they would be like, how? you were never supposed to look like that. Except this is actually what my body was also always supposed to look like. But I was so warped from what I was taking in that I thought that I was so many things that I wasn't. And so I think it's important for us in this day and age, especially now where, I mean, I done had about 5 email offers for Ozempic since January. So when I can get an email saying, hey, we got you, all you got to do is make an Instagram post. And I know I'm not the only person getting those kinds of offers. I think we have to keep that piece in mind with autonomy too, because do I agree with it per se? No. But as a clinician, if I'm really thinking about what autonomy means, like Bria said, sometimes I have to let people do things, even if I don't know that it's the best decision for them, because they get to have that autonomy to make that decision.
I also want to know that sometimes this journey of liberation is so it's not the quick 30 days to get you to your destination. Like Ashanta said, you are always in recovery. And so I explain to my clients, like, sure, you can join somebody's weight loss challenge and you will forever be joining challenges. And it's just like, if in some of our clients deeply, they don't feel they have the time. And so helping them to nurture that understanding that, yeah, no, it's not. When I first started intuitive eating, I tell the story all the time. I started intuitive eating as a tool to lose weight, right? That's not the purpose of it, right? But because, like Ashanta said, it's so psychological, we find ways to try to manipulate things. And then that becomes the new thing. So many people use intuitive eating very, very harmfully, right? And helping our clients to see that, these changes in your body may not look like what you thought this journey of recovery was going to look like. So being very honest and very upfront, and that is also a part of autonomy.
Yeah. And while we're talking about health and autonomy, this idea that we owe health to somebody or that we owe health to society. Nope, you actually don't. Like you do what you want. It's your body, it's your life. You actually can do what you want. And there shouldn't be any penalty. There shouldn't be any negative connotation for you fully asserting your autonomy. You want to smoke cigarette? I had an uncle, God bless him. He was on oxygen for emphysema, steady smoking. Autonomy, right? Like, I may not like it, but that's your choice. And I'm not gonna. What I want people to know is that you make your own choices, and it does not mean that you should be treated in an undignified manner or a less than humane manner for the choices that you make. And to me, that's what autonomy means. I can respect your choices. I don't have to agree with them, but I can respect them and respect you as a person that deserves to be treated with the dignity I would give any other human being. And I think that is what is the crux. That is the foundation. Reteaching people, helping them unlearn, and then helping them relearn that they deserve that treatment regardless of their life choices, right? I think that's what I spend a lot of time talking about.
Dang, y'all. Dang. Dang. Like, wow. Because now I'm just sitting in this place where it's like, wow, like, to choose, like, to have the ability to choose is such a sacred act. It's something we take for granted / don't really think about, because we make choices so often, and we kind of have to, especially as adults, and the type of autonomy that we're given as kind of typically developing adults, right? But really, I think to view it even from that like philosophical perspective, right, of like, there's such a sacredness in not only you making a choice for yourself and for your health, but also for allowing someone else to live their journey, right? And whatever choices that consists of, because that is their journey and they're the main character in their own narrative. So, man, that just took me to such a philosophical place. The nature of personhood. I'm telling you, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Um, and so, and this I think really does go right into giving people the freedom of choice, right? When we think about communities, when we think about communities of Black women, when we think about maybe generations that are older than us, generations that are younger than us, um, how can the concept of community and Black women, Black femmes, foster a more inclusive and supportive environment for folks on their journey um, towards understanding, right? Towards being kind of nurtured to this place. Um, yeah. Anyone can go ahead. Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to say something.
Mhm.
So I think a very good example of this, I'm going to actually shout out an organization here in Chicago called Free Root Operation. And this is a nonprofit organization that exists specifically to support the wellness for Black mothers in the attempt to support gun violence. And I think that that is so crucial because when I first came across this organization, I said, well, wait a minute, what do taking these mothers to the Lyric Opera have to do with gun violence? But when you sit down and you think about it, it has everything to do with it. It has absolutely everything to do with it. Because if you have the opportunity to experience something that frankly has never even been in your realm of choice for so many reasons, how then do you actually support your children in your community if they don't know what else is outside of this narrative that has been set specifically for Black and brown folks that especially live in more low equity communities? What do you have to look for? What do you have to strive for if you only know that narrative? Versus what do you have to look for? What do you have to strive for if you know a narrative in which it's okay to heal yourself and it's okay to feel and you should feel? And here's some tools on emotional regulation. And let's do a sound bath and let's go have joy, because
Mhm.
joy is also a powerful emotion and joy is also such a powerful way to lead. It's not power in our traditional sense, but it's powerful.
Mm. Yeah,
Yeah.
Leslie, I think you put a hand up.
I was actually going to ask you if you could repeat your question, because I have like a million thoughts going through my head at once, and I want to make sure that I stay on topic.
Yes, yes, yes. So it's the idea of community, and creating spaces for us, as Black women, Black femmes, to be able to really create an environment that's not only inclusive and supportive, but really allows for that nurturing, right? That I think Bria was talking about, and really just allowing those options to be presented, right? Just kind of nurturing, supportive environment without the pressure necessarily.
So I heard, okay, so I was right, but it does kind of change my answer a little bit. I believe that community is the antithesis of capitalism and white supremacy culture, because the culture that we have been fed upholds things like individualism, even though it's a false sense of individualism, but perfectionism. We talk a lot, you hear so many um, things about burnout and you know, why the nap ministry, why she feels so revolutionary talking about rest, because we as Black women and Black femmes and Black people in general, our bodies have been commodified. We have been taught that we only have a value when we are producing, and when we are producing for other people, especially. The whole chattel enslavement was built upon that premise that we are just beasts of burden, right? That don't feel pain. We've been completely dehumanized. And I think that if we look back before that, because that's only a snippet of our history. If we look back to what our ancestors were doing, community was the way that needs were met. And now we know that. Like, now we are starting to realize the truth and power in that. We are talking about mutual aid, right? We are talking about community care. We are doing it. we are literally doing it, because I think that in community, we see ourselves, we see the best of ourselves reflected. Like, I can look to these faces on this screen and know that the best of what I have to offer is wrapped up right here. I know that if I have a question, I can reach out to any one of these lovely squares and get answers, and I can get support, and I can get a type of love that comes from being in this community that you can't find outside of it. And so I think that that's where our real opportunity is to create these welcoming communities and make them foundational to foundational to this work and to the liberation, because we are all of our liberation is tied up together. Like, I know it doesn't seem that way in the Western culture, but it is. Like, one of us is not going to be free if someone else is not. Like, it's just not. It just isn't really, it really isn't true. And so I think that that's where that opportunity is. I think that we've always had it too. I think that other people are telling our stories, and it's time for us to reclaim our own narratives. Centuries, Black women have had sororities, and before that they had sister circles, and before that they had quilting circles, and they had all these things that built the community in for them, right? Ways to make, they had the church, they had Eastern Star, my grandmother, they have these things. We have a ways to meet and support and meet the needs and learn about the needs of each other. And I just think that we have got to stop buying this hype of individuality and pull yourself up by your own bootstraps. They haven't pulled themselves up by any bootstraps. What they've done is stepped on the necks and backs and shoulders of other people that they've exploited. So let's call it what it is and get back to really giving that support and that love, because we have each other. Like, we really do. We can understand each other like no one else can understand. And it's going to be that type of community building that's going to make the difference for us. And I think that even just when we have these talks, even no matter how small or big the viewership of this is, it's community. And anyone watching this will know that, okay, I can email or DM any one of these women, and they're going to be a resource for me. They're going to be someone I can lean on, and I think that that's what's important.
Yeah. Yep. Not the bootstraps, but stepping on necks and backs and shoulders. My goodness gracious. Bria, how about you?
Yeah. So the name of my business changed because of this reason exactly. I was really focused on trying to bridge all of my work together. And one thing that my clients would say in therapy is that, Bria, this is great, but when I come outside of here, this is not what my reality looks like, right? I could literally go, and I use this example because I use it all the time. I could join a 30-day weight loss challenge, right? And that's what I'm so tempted to do because everybody else is doing it. And so that made me think, and I'm like, yes, there are all of these little pockets of communities, but there's no community really that is integrated to help Black women belong in their bodies. And I think that was the focal point of really trying to nurture spaces for Black women to exist with each other, right? Because ethically, right, I couldn't bring all my therapy clients together and say, hey, this is the community. We're all here. The gang's all here, right? I have many clients that see me for therapy for body image issues. But the challenge was unless it was like a therapeutic group, there was no way to bring them together. And so like nurturing spaces that go against the status quo, right, are so important because it's really where we draw our strength and our resiliency. When the rest of the world is doing something else, how do we stay grounded and 10 toes down with what we are doing, what we are promoting, what we are sharing? And so I think similarly to Leslie and Ashanti's, that communal piece is foundational to this work thriving beyond just the movement. The movement is beautiful, and we need some focal anchored spaces for women to truly like step into themselves. And the last tenet of my organization is liberating others. So once we allow ourselves to be liberated, we have a responsibility to help to liberate other folks.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. And Tash, how about you?
Can you please rephrase the question again?
Yes, sure. Yeah, that question was kind of all place. I like wrote it down. ChatGPT actually wrote it. And I was like, let me kind of revamp this. But yeah, so the question was, how can we create really spaces of liberation amongst Black women and Black femmes? Places for folks to be able to be walked alongside with, I think, as they go on their journey towards building a better relationship with their body. See, this is the third time that I said the question, and the third time was the charm. That just came out. That was exactly what the question was. Yes.
Well, I think in creating those safe spaces, it would be good if we could celebrate the intersectionality of Black women. So having a bunch of different people with different experiences being able to share those stories can really be useful, especially intergenerationally. That is really powerful as well. Like hearing from your grandma, your aunties, and sharing that with your little cousins, things like that. So important. And then also not just having these events where we tell you that you're beautiful the way you are, but also providing resources for self-education later, and really encouraging that is also really useful.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah, that intergenerational piece is really, yeah, is really transformative to be able to learn from both a young one and an older person at the same time. Yeah, yeah. And so for our last question, um, I want to touch on this idea of allyship and solidarity, because there are folks that might be watching or might watch this in the future who might not be a part of the African diaspora, but they want to do something. They've been moved to act. They've been moved to exist in a way that's different from that of their predecessors. And so, what role would allyship or solidarity play in creating these sorts of spaces?
Yeah, I'm gonna go first. Look, me and Shanta's both like, unclick unmute. Okay, so I'm gonna say this, and I want to preface this by saying I am not by any means attacking non-Black or non-BIPOC people. What I am calling for is for them to really do some self-reflecting before they step into the allyship arena. Because what I find, one leg of my business is from my MBA, I do a lot of diversity work. I was a diversity executive for a big nonprofit, and I still do like racial healing circles. I do a lot of that work for professional groups to really look at the barriers that they are having to from serving everybody equitably. So my first thing is to call them. I know that they have these feelings, but if they haven't done any of that very much needed healing work to really understand what these systems are doing and have done historically and what they continue to do, and really examine their privilege And privilege does not mean money. Privilege means decreased obstacles. And if they don't really understand that, they're going to come to this space and they're going to get their feelings hurt, and then they're going to not be an ally. So, because they're not ready to really understand what that means. An ally can shift resources. An ally can support and uplift businesses. Not can, they should be. They should be creating a space. An ally is a listener, not necessarily all the time being active, but you've got to do certain things before you can move from allyship to full on what I call co-conspiratorship. Like being able to activate other allies and co-conspirators in the name of, because it's the right thing to do, and you understand that it's going to literally take all of us. You look at anything in history, the colonizer never just gives up the power of the position without a fight. Like slavery was ended in this country, and it was white and brown people, right? So we know that there are natural co-conspirators and allies there. We know that. The same thing with civil rights, we know that. But you have to have done so much of the work before you can come to this space, because you're going to get your feelings hurt, because someone's going to say white people and you're going to be all in your feelings, and you're not able to stay focused on what they're actually saying. We're not saying you white person right there in that pink and yellow shirt. I'm saying historically what has been done. And I think that is one of the biggest things, because until they do that work, they don't understand the inequity in opportunity. They don't understand the inequity in pay and compensation that we're up against. They don't understand how the foundation for the work has been done by Black women and femmes, and then it's hijacked by someone who's non-Black, and they make money, but the people who actually like the groundwork are still struggling. Like, they have to have done that work before they can really understand some of these systemic inequities that are perpetuated and upheld so dearly even now. And I think that's there's a place for them. We need them. Like, we need allies, but we need allies that are prepared to be allies, not just someone who's necessarily emotionally moved. Let that emotional moving motivate you and activate you to prepare to be an ally if you haven't done it already.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree with Leslie in that, there is work to be done before you can say ally, right? And that's whether we're talking about being an ally to the Black community, whether we're talking about being an ally to the queer community, whether we're talking about being an ally to the fat community, whether we're talking about being an ally to somebody who's intersects at all those identities like myself. Like that level of truly, it's education, unlearning and relearning that needs to take place before you can really step into ally or co-conspirator. It's a lot of work, and a lot of people don't want to do the work, and that's not okay. I'm not gonna judge you for it. I'm not gonna judge you for it, and don't tell me you're an ally, because it's just not true. You are not ready to, like you say, give up some of your privilege, which can come in the sense of maybe not every single time that somebody reaches out to you and says, I want you to come and speak at this conference, you don't have to say yes every time. Sometimes you can say, thank you. And who else is speaking? Because if it ain't no Black or brown people speaking, I'm not coming. Or who else is speaking? Oh, majority of folks are white people. You know what? Instead of me doing this, I actually think my colleague so-and-so would be a great fit, because they're able to talk about this not only from the same professional experience, but also with the added lived experience and possibly also professional experience to add these other intersectional ideologies. And again, not everybody is ready for that. And that's okay to an extent, but don't say that you are if you're not.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And I'm seeing your comment, Leslie, and it really is like that. Like, is this a status thing for you? Is this you're trying to create social capital? Or are you actually trying to help dismantle these systems? Because those are two different things.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. Okay, yeah. And so we have Bria and Tash. If either of you or both of you have some thoughts on that subject of allyship.
Yeah, I would also add deconstructing your own systems. Because if you are currently still part of systems that are harmful, that internal work that Leslie shared starts with your own organization. And similarly to what Ashanta said, making room and space, right? Not quota meets, being able to say, like we need to create equity and access. What does that look like? And so being able to, one, find some time to learn on your own. I think that is probably the most important. And also putting yourself into rooms where you can also learn and not always want to be taught, right? So that looks like maybe joining someone's space where they're educating, i.e., this space would be a beautiful space, right? And that's not the only thing you need to do, but that's something that you can do that shows that I am an active and willing participant in this, and I'm just not just trying to be taught it, but I have a vested interest in learning these things on my own, right? Like I could go for days, but it probably wouldn't be a productive conversation. So that's my take on it.
Yeah,
And just
yeah.
to piggyback on everyone, because everyone has said such amazing points that I agree with. I think it's definitely also about being consistent, because I don't know how much you guys remember 2020, but I feel like people really became allies and they were doing so much virtue signaling. I have never been reached out to as much as that time, when everyone was trying to prove that they're there for us, for Black people. But then when you really break it down, they didn't want to do any of the self work. They, again, wanted to be taught everything. But I think it's uncomfortable and it's easy for some people to ignore. So if they want to be true allies, they need to actively listen, do that self work, and also use their privilege to uplift Black women, femmes. And, you know, even though it's more than just finances, the finances do help as well. It truly does. And partnering and coming up with educational initiatives with Black people would be so useful. So I think that allyship goes so much deeper than how people perceive it right now.
Wow. Wow. And Tash, you bringing up like the people reaching out to you, that like unlocked like a suppressed or hidden memory or something for me. Like I was like, yeah, I had all these friends, my East Asian friend, I had all these folks that like even just like friends on Facebook, which like I know that I only talked to you 3 times.
And also, when tragedy hits other communities of color, boy, they look right to their Black friends to march in solidarity, or line up. And I'm happy to do so, because I believe in the liberation of all of us. But man, when it gets uncomfortable for others, sometimes they get going. They get gone from the movement, right? They don't get going deeper into the work. They just like, I'm out, I'm over here. And I think that uncomfortability with all of this is even for us Black women, being able to be uncomfortable as we dissect some of the internalized archetypes that we've been fed. Strong Black woman, the Jezebel, the Sapphire, man complex, like colorism, women. Black women, us and colorism, like this is for some reason in 2024 is like, not that it's ever gone away, but it's been like a massive resurgence of that lately. And just looking at some of the things that are going on, like it's easy for us to talk about allies, but we also we have work to do. We have self-reflection work that we need to do. We have healing, and I love that Bria loves the word nurturing, because that's what's happening. We need to nurture ourselves at those wound sites, right? That's what that and community can help us do that, but we have to be open. And sometimes we don't want to be vulnerable ourselves. We don't want to be vulnerable with ourselves, and we definitely don't want to be vulnerable with other people. But when we really start to break down and really talk about how we want to move away from the stigma, it's uncomfortable work, not just for them, but for us. Growing pains. I just think that we have this idea that growth is easy. It's it's free from discomfort or even pain. And I always think about baby teeth, right? Even when you get a permanent tooth as a child, if you remember, that was not pain free. Like that gum gets soft, the tooth, and you start wiggling it and it hurts. And then we wiggle it with your tongue and it hurts. But it's hurting the whole time as it makes that space. Bones are shifting. I'm sorry, I just had a flashback to Titus, that actor on that show when he was like, teeth are outside bones. I'm sorry, I didn't mean. I'm sorry, I'm off topic. But but the coming in of the new tooth is bigger than that. You know, like those things are uncomfortable, but it's growth, right? It's forward progress. And we have to be able to lean into that discomfort when it's for growth. And I think that's what makes community, that's what makes sisterhood, that's what makes being together so nice, because I can lay some of that on you. And I know that you'll hug me, you'll tell me, you'll bring salt water for me to gargle, whatever the situation is, right? I know that community is a salve for that pain, even while I go through it, right? You can't take it away, but you can support me as I make this stand. And I think that is what allyship we should be talking about that as well. And I find that no one wants to talk about the uncomfortable stuff, like the real nitty gritty. It's all flowers. It's like, oh, I had darkness and then it was sunlight. No, I had darkness and it was raining, and then I got pelted with cow manure, and then I fell down, and then I ripped all my hose, and then I finally came on. So that's what it's really like. You know what I'm saying? It's a whole lot to get to that other side. But then when you get there, you realize how much it actually was worth it all. And I think that that's what we need to be supporting each other through, is through those trenches, and knowing that it's okay. And it's going to be ugly crying. It's going to be lace fronts flipping back. It's going to be all that, right? Like it's going to, but it will be okay. But it will be okay.
Mm-hmm. And that's literally the perfect note to close on, right? Like I think probably one of my biggest critiques of panel events, especially like celebrity panels, is like we just have people just talking, right? Like talking is great, I think, and talking about ideas, discourse, like is important, but I don't just want to talk about it, I want to be about it, right? And so absolutely, like I think that those words, Leslie, are an incredible place to close. That yes, right, there is work to be done. There is work to be done just in our own relationship with discomfort, our own relationship with the idea of self-preservation, right? There is work to be done. And it can start right now, right? It can start right now. I want to encourage all of you who are watching this now or in the future to just journal some things that really stuck out, maybe 3 things, and allow that to really lead you to start something new. It doesn't, you don't need to start no nonprofit, you know what I'm saying? I mean, hey, if you do, that's fine, but just to start a new way of thinking, a new way of relating to yourself and others. So that is definitely what I would challenge you all to do. But yes, thank you so much, Ashantis, Tash, Leslie, and Bria. And thank you all for tuning in to Black Girl Love Yourself. This is the first time we're doing this event, but not the last time. Thank you all for being here today. Have a good rest of your day, everybody. Bye.